Here.
Thanks for starting the recording, Phil.
Yeah.
Krista Silva, I don't see yet. Greg Johnson, I don't see. Mary,
Yes.
Hillary, I don't see Hillary. Brian,
Yes.
thank you. Mike Stevens.
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Good, thank you. Robert Lowe, I don't see him on there. Jennifer, don't see Jennifer. Wayne,
Yes, I'm here.
and I am here. Mark Anderson.
Here.
Anthony?
Here.
Ah, good. Matthew?
Here.
Thank you. Thank you. Nick? Is Nick here yet?
Yes, here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Ken Newhouser here? See him, Josh?
Yep.
Did I hear Ken say here? Yeah, I did.
Ken's here.
Okay, Nick's
yeah.
here. Ken's here, all right. Those are all the voting members. We're good to go. Let me read the governor's notes and we'll get it cranked up here. So pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023 signed into law by Governor Healy on March 29, 2023, several pandemic-related relief provisions suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A, Section 20, were further extended until March 31st, 2025. All members of the public are invited to join the meeting virtually, either by computer or phone, as noted. If joining virtually, video and audio will be turned off for public participants unless otherwise stipulated by the chair. That's it, Phil. I'm going to turn it over to you for a second. And actually, I think it comes back to me. We need to vote on the, need to vote to approve the minutes of the meeting of, and I got them here somewhere, January 8th, I think it was. Yes. So has everybody read the minutes of the January 8th meeting? Does anybody have any questions, issues, edits? I don't hear any. I don't see any. Perfect. Via roll call. Give me a second. Let me get my sheet again. The minutes approval. Okay, going down the line, voting members. Justin.
Yes.
Thank you. Krista Silva, not here. Greg Johnson, not. Mary.
Yes.
Hillary, no. Brian.
Yes.
Mike Stevens.
Yes.
Thank you. Rob, not on. Jennifer, not on. Wayne.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Thank you. Matthew.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Ken.
Present.
Thank you. You always have to be different, Ken. That's great. Josh.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, minutes are approved. That's it. It's all yours, Phil. Go for it.
Thank you, Jerry. Before I get into the schedule update, I want to introduce a new Colliers team member, Trey Logie. He's the project manager with us. He's going to be helping me out on the project through the rest of design, contractor pre-qual, bidding, construction, and closeout. I'm not going anywhere. I just need a little more manpower. So that's where Trey comes in. Trey, you want to give him a little background on yourself?
Yeah, good evening, committee. How are you? Again, Trey Logie, Colliers Project Leaders. And as Phil mentioned, I will be assisting with the Green Meadow project. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. It's a very exciting project for sure. Small background on me, from carpenter to superintendent to project manager, very diverse construction background. Grew up in the DC area and migrated north about 9 years ago from now. So, but yeah. If you need anything, please do not feel free to reach out to me. I'm here for your support as well as Phil's.
Thanks, Trey. Trey's also helping me out with North Andover Middle School ad reno project, as well as another elementary school project in North Andover. So we're keeping him busy.
Good.
You're
Welcome
gonna
aboard,
say something?
Trey.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Jerry. Thank you.
Welcome.
So with that, we'll roll into the schedule update. So no changes here on these deliverable dates on the left-hand side, or I should say the dates in which we're going to seek your building committee approval for the upcoming milestones. So design development, that's the one directly in front of us now. That's scheduled for April 22nd. And then 60% construction document scheduled for June 24th. And then the 90% construction document building committee approval September 30th. So no changes with those deliverable dates. To just kind of zoom into what's in front of us for design deliverable tasks. So the design team is due to get the design development drawings and specs over to the cost estimator. So we got one on the design team side and then one on the owner side on March 21st. And on that date, that'll also be the date where we distribute the drawings and specs to the folks that are going to do quality control design reviews. So the MEP commissioning agent that the MSBA procured, they'll do their design review. It'll also get over to the building envelope commissioning agent that MSBA procured. They'll do their design review starting on at March 21st date. And then Colliers will do their design review starting on that date. Due to get the design development estimates, the unreconciled estimates, so that the estimators first pass at the estimates on April 4th. We'll have our estimate reconciliation meeting, kind of an all-day meeting between the two estimators, design team, OPM, and kind of go through all the project scopes of work and come up with a reconciled number at the end of it, as well as go through value engineering in that meeting. That'll happen on April 16th. And then we'll meet with you all on April 22nd, go through all that content, go through all the numbers and seek your approval on that set. And the next day, get it over to MSBA. MSBA takes a few weeks to do essentially another quality control design review. And they'll get us their comments by mid-May, in which we'll put together a response to them. Any questions on the schedule update? Go ahead, Josh.
Quick question, Phil. So it looks like I guess question for you. Will we get the cost estimates as a building committee in advance of the 4/22 meeting, or are we going to see it that day and vote on it same day?
No, so the reconciliation meeting will be on the 16th, and I should be able to get you guys the reconciled estimates and the estimate analysis the next day, so call it the 17th.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Ken?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So will there be any internal review of drawings before the 21st, or are they already posted somewhere?
So, well, no, that would be when the first internal review would happen. So we can get you guys a link to the set that's sent to the estimators on March 21st. And
Okay.
if you want to put together any comments, by all means. Josh?
Sorry, real quick, because I don't want to take up too much time. But the other thing that I just want to make sure we're keeping an eye on is the community involvement. As we get into the DD phase here, I'm just cognizant of the fact that once we get to the end of DD, we typically, most of the design is pretty well set. And then from there on, it's a lot of refinements. Now, I'm not sure that there's a lot of interest in the community to go through 90% of the design. But there are some key areas that, at least in my experience, I think the residents like to be able to weigh in on things like our landscape design, our playground design, and I think probably sustainability as well. And then just external, what the building looks like, external building materials, that kind of stuff. I don't know how well attended it would be, but I think it would be good to make an effort. So if nothing else, we're not accused of not being inclusive.
No, that's fair. What we can do is potentially after this meeting offline, Jerry, we can figure out when a date for a community forum would make sense. And we can figure out if folks think it should be in person or virtual, whatever people think.
Agreed. Yep.
Okay. Mary?
Yeah, and I was just gonna sort of say the same thing as Josh, just to give people the opportunity, because we have been saying that, you know, that we would allow them. And secondly, as importantly, knowing that there's the checks and balances between the MSBA doing their due diligence and us doing ours to, you know, maybe when we finally do go to the MSBA, just it's another great way to tell the public, you know, this is what we're doing, and we're not doing it just by ourselves. We've got the MSBA, you know, we've got to go by their standard the whole time. So
Yep. Yep.
thank you.
Mike?
Thank you. Josh stole my thunder as well, but one additional question to that is, are there still any further opportunities for essentially the users to participate in the design process, the staff of the building, and possibly families if need be, but primarily the staff?
Yeah, Chris, why don't you take that?
Yeah, Mike, so one of the things I'll be discussing is our design update. There will be some additional meetings with the district, the staff, some of the specialty spaces, you know, PE, music, art, those types of things, special education. So that we've had meetings with these groups previously, and what we want to do is now that the project is moving forward, the design has not changed since then, as was mentioned earlier, I think by Josh, that we're now taking that approved plan and we're refining it to reflect, you know, all the additional information that is coming forth. So we're going to revisit it with Brian, Rob Rulo, and their staff, to make sure that everything we gathered during schematic design still stands. We'll make any minor adjustments as needed and incorporate that into the plans as we move forward through DD, 60%, et cetera. So those meetings, as I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit more about it when we do the design update, but hopefully that gives you an idea, big picture.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I'll move on to budget update. So on the slide here is the invoice summary of the 4 invoices that we've plugged into the budget since we last met in early January. You got 4 invoices, 2 for Colliers, 2 from Mount Vernon Group. One of Colliers, this top one here, covers the months of March of last year through December of last year. That's that $49,383.91. And then January invoice in the amount of $16,614. This fee or this dollar amount is covered in Collier's DD to close out contract. And then Mount Vernon Group's invoices for January and February, their first 2 design development invoices, both in the amount of $334,500. Their billing is a kind of a fixed fee schedule based off of the duration of the design process. So those are the 4 invoices that have been plugged into the budget since we last met. And just to show you out of the total project budget where they align budget line item wise. So OPM budget line item here, you got the paid to date adding up to the 66K, unpaid to date that 2.12 million. And then the A&E fees for Mount Vernon Group's DD invoices, paid to date 669K, unpaid that 5.5 million. And then the bottom of column D1, the paid to date, you got that $1.6 million value. The other slide here I'll show, if you recall, when we were in the feasibility study phase at each building committee meeting, I would show a slide that showed how we were getting reimbursed all along the way by MSBA. So this $504,997, the district just submitted their most recent ProPay request. So this number is probably going to go up in the next few days, to be honest with you, and that they'll catch up to their percentage in which they're reimbursing for the project. Before I go on to the next slide, because the next slide is going to speak to this $36.469 million number. Are there any questions on any of those invoices or budget update? Wayne?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that you're right, Phil, that those invoices that you just mentioned will be submitted to MSBA via ProPay, and you're right, that number will jump substantially.
Thank you. Nick?
My experience speaking here, are we okay with cash flow on the job, waiting for them to come back with our reimbursements.
Yeah, so we've been in communication with the town regarding cash flow. So we've provided the town cash flow summaries a few different times through the course of the past year. And those cash flows have been showing them anticipating to start paying for design services right out after the local vote approval. So they've been coordinating with Hilltop Security, the town bonding company, and they got their plan in place to make sure they can pay their bills and keep things moving.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. So this 36,469,557, great news, and we've been updating you guys all along the way, but that reflects the MSBA supplemental grant. It's now official. Paperwork is signed between MSBA and the town. We got an extra $7 million from the state, from MSBA. So in terms of ratio between local share and MSBA share, we went into the local vote at a 65% on local, 35% on MSBA. With that supplemental grant, you're looking at a reduction of 56% for the local share and 44% for the MSBA share. So that's that revised total grant amount of that 36,469,557. It was previously this $29.4 million value. So great news on that. Okay. So next update here related to the budget is the lead certification fee review and vote. If you all recall, the project's going to be achieving LEED Gold certification. Through that process, there are some certain LEED certification fees that are required to be paid. And Chris, I'll let you kind of break down these fees.
Yeah, so thanks, Phil. As part of the lead registration, there's a number of fees, as Phil said, related to registration, design, construction. To obtain that LEED Gold certification, we're looking at obtaining a number of points, if you will, for the various items on the scorecard, which, if you remember correctly, we've reviewed in the past, talking about the various categories of construction, sustainability, site, and such, building envelope. So basically breaks it down into the registration process of, say, $1,350 for silver, gold, and platinum level members. Then we break down a split review for design, and it's based on a 53 cent per square foot. We do have 90,300 square foot. We're still on target with that overall number, which has a registration fee of $4,785.90. And then the split review during construction is 18 cents per square foot for a total there of about $1,625.40. So, when you break it down and calculate it all out, the total is $7,761.30. To register, they review the design, then they'll do a construction review. We submit a ton of paperwork at the end, and then meet that criteria, and we have your gold certification. So we're still on target for doing that during the design process. And we do register early on, so the design takes place moving forward.
So if we get your approval tonight on that, on those fees, Chris will notify them, and I'm sure they'll send the invoice over for the initial registration of $1,350.
Anybody have any, because I want to accept a motion on this, but does anybody have any questions before we even start the process? I don't see any hands up yet. This is not news to us. It's an update to us because we have talked about this in the past. So I would certainly accept a motion from a voting member for the LEED certification fee, a vote for that fee. And the fee is, as shown on the bottom of the slide, $7,761.30. Does somebody want to move on that? And would there be a
I'll
second?
make a motion that we approve the total LEED certifications fee of $7,761.30.
Second.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you, Ken. Via roll call. Vote for this one. Okay. We're voting for the lead certification fee. All right, Justin,
Yes.
Krista Silva, I don't think is on. Greg, I don't think is on. Mary,
Yes.
Hillary, not on. Brian,
Yes.
thank you. Mike Stevens,
Yes.
Rob Rouleau is not on.
Yes.
Oh, there you are. Thanks, Rob. Jennifer Gaudette, I don't think Jennifer.
No problem.
Was that Jennifer I heard?
No.
Oh, all right. Wayne,
Yes.
thank you. I'm a yes. Mark Anderson,
Yes.
thank you. Anthony,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes, sir.
thank you. Ken,
Yes.
Josh, did Josh leave?
Nope, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can now.
Yep, I said,
you-
yes, definitely yes.
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
You were whispering. I know you were trying to be silent. It vote passes. Good to go. So
Okay,
Chris,
thank you.
you're good to notify them tomorrow. Thanks,
Okay,
man.
thank you.
Okay, the next item under budget update is the tax attorney / accounting consulting services procurement. So Colliers had reached out or researched who would be a qualified firm to provide these tax attorney / accounting services to help the town get as much of the IRA rebate that they can get. You know, those numbers that we presented to the community throughout the feasibility study effort, wanted to make sure we hold up to those numbers and get as much as we can out of it. It's an in-depth process through filing with the IRS, and we want to make sure we have a qualified firm that can help us through the process. So in researching firms that provide this kind of specialized service, if you will, with these new IRA rebate programs, this company, Energy Tax Savers out of New York, kept coming up. We kept seeing them presenting across the country to towns and cities and design firms and so on and so on, speaking to the ins and outs of the IRA rebate. So with that, we knew that was a company we wanted to seek a proposal from, and we reached out to Maynard Town Council to find out through their business if they've run into any other firms that provide this specialized service, and she actually indicated Energy Tax Savers is a firm that a couple other clients of hers are using for this same exact reason. So with that, we reached out to Energy Tax Savers, and they submitted a proposal to us. We kind of worked with them trying to understand what the scope of services should be. And with that, we put together an RFP. We worked with town council to draft what the owner contract wants to be between both parties, and issued them the RFP. So they sent us a proposal with a fixed fee of $18,000. That fixed fee would be billed in 3 increments, 3 $6,000 increments. Their services would start kind of from design, and it would go through IRS audit if the project was audited. But to kind of go through the 3 increments of payment, first $6,000 payment, that would be at the completion of gathering all the applicant's data with assistance from OPM owner and any third parties. Work with an educate designer on designing to maximize the tax incentives, work with and educate the installing contractor to maximize tax incentives, and present to you all in order to update you all on the status of the scope. So that at that point, that would be that first $6,000 billing. The second one would be, and you can disregard these first 2 bullet points. I coordinated with them today, and Maynard doesn't apply to this there's a low income bonus for low income areas that are having solar involved in their project, but Maynard doesn't isn't compatible with this low income part of it. So that second $6,000 increment would be working with the OPM and owner to prepare all documentation required for the pre-filing and then assist the town in the pre-filing. And then last payment, work with design team and contractors to segregate eligible project costs from ineligible project costs. Work with the OPM and owner to prepare all documentation required for filing, assist owner in filing, and then provide IRS audit assistance through appeals in the event of an IRS audit. So, and we sent you all reference responses. I think we got five of them, all came out great. I probably had, I don't know, 10 to 12 different email exchanges with this gentleman, Jacob Goldman. He's the VP with the company. He's been beyond prompt, beyond responsive. And I really got a good feeling that they're going to be a firm that helps us out a bunch to make sure we get all we can with this IRA rebate. So we would recommend approval on their proposal. Josh, you got your hand raised?
I'm just going to let folks know, energy tax savers. So not only am I working with them on other projects, but if you call Eversource, this is who they recommend. If you reach out to the state, this is who they recommend off the record, because they're not supposed to make recommendations. But you know, this is very, very new, so there's not a lot of people who can point to projects that they've completed. But everybody I talk to in the industry points towards them for tax attorney and accounting consulting services. So Jacob is he's leading the charge in the Commonwealth.
Thanks, Josh. That was a good update. Thank you very much. So you as an end user have firsthand information on that. That's excellent.
Yep.
Any other questions? Concerns? I don't see any. Yeah, Ken, go ahead. You're muted, Ken.
There we go. Sorry. Took a couple clicks to get that off. So I read through the proposal and it seemed to address the federal tax incentives. Would this also, would they be able to help us with the Massachusetts incentives? And I understand that this tax incentives are different than Eversource incentives.
Well, so the Eversource incentives we're gonna be working with Eversource to make sure we get those numbers that we presented. Yeah, but any other kind of IRS related incentives, yes, we're gonna leverage energy tax savers on that.
Okay, but I guess I'll try to rephrase my question for state tax incentives. So Department of Revenue as distinct from IRS.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Jacob and understand what he can provide for services for that. I mean, this proposal is kind of linked to the federal IRA rebate.
Okay.
But I'll look into that.
Okay, thanks. Just to clarify, this is solely on the federal taxes. Got it.
And the town, town hall may have some input on that too. I don't know. Whomever they may have used in the past, regarding, state taxes, so they could be helpful. Good questions, Ken. Good, glad you highlighted that one. Any other questions, issues, concerns? I don't see any. I would entertain a motion to approve energy tax savers proposal for the IRA rebate consulting services in the amount of $18,000. Would somebody move on that?
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Can I get a second? And that was, who was the second?
That was Brian Haas, I believe.
Oh, that was Brian. Very
Correct.
good. Thank you. Thank you, Brian. By a roll call. Let's go down the list again. This is for energy tax savers. Justin.
Yes.
Thank you. Chris is not here. Drake. Mary.
Yes.
Hillary not here. Brian.
Yes.
Mike Stevens.
Yes.
Rob.
Yes.
Jennifer not here. Wayne.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark Anderson.
Yes.
Anthony.
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Nick.
Yes, because Josh outed Eversource. It was great.
Very good. Uh, Ken,
Yes.
thank you. Josh.
Yes.
All right, that's it. Unanimous. Very good.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you, Phil.
So next agenda topic are the test results for the geothermal testing. Chris, you want to take this?
Sure. So if everybody remembers, at one of our previous meetings, we discussed the fact that the geothermal designers have done some test bores. So we'll recap, and then the fact that they did two test bores that were completed to about 600 feet in depth over behind the existing school in that back field. Those were drilled. The piping was installed, they were grouted, and they were pressure tested, etc. So that all went well. That happened the week before Christmas. Then they sat for about 5 days, which is required between the installation and then the conductivity testing. Just to remind everybody, these two borings will be part of the final well field to serve the building. So during that process, various subsurface conditions were encountered in the drilling process. The geothermal designer prepared a report, submitted that. I believe we shared that with the group. And what they found was nothing surprising. They did find some subsurface ledge, boulders, various conditions below. Even they found some groundwater. None of it was out of the ordinary. Everything was manageable. That was all prepared in the logs that were included in the report. So that basically confirmed that both installations met the project specifications. There were no issues during that time. Even drilling through the ledge, they found that the drilling rates were very acceptable and conducive to when we go out to bid and try to get the appropriate drilling contractors. They performed pressure and flow tests on the two wells. Those passed really well. As an example, the conductivity rates tend to try and be somewhere on average between like 1.4 and 2.0 BTUs per feet per second, etc. They found that the wells yielded about 1.9. So good test results for the two well fields. They anticipate getting similar results on the remaining well fields. And one of the things that they did mention is the results were very similar, if not a little bit better than they experienced over in Acton, Boxborough. So very positive for this project. Now, the well field size will be based on the building load. So we've had meetings with the green engineer, who's our energy model, and our mechanical engineer with our well designer, talking about sharing the necessary loads from the energy model side of things, as well as the building loads for heating and cooling to determine how many wells that they're going to need at the approximate depth that they've encountered, which would be around 600 feet. So to date, everything's gone well with the results. Green engineer is compiling their information, as is our mechanical engineer, to get over to the well designer, and they are going to in turn then plan on the number of wells required based on the results that they've reached. Any questions on that kind of big picture information? If you haven't read the report, I would suggest taking a look through it. Some interesting information, some very technical, but it does provide some good insight as to what's out there and how they're looking to service the building. Right now, they're anticipating somewhere in the 70 plus or minus wells based on preliminary information. Once we get the additional loads, that'll help them fine tune it. If it yields a fact that they may need 70 wells, they'll probably install 72 to make sure they've got the appropriate number, right? We want to be conservative to make sure we meet the demands during the peaks and the lows. Josh?
Thank you. Just a quick question, and I genuinely don't know the answer to this. Well, first of all, the report looked great. I've got a couple of these going with the same company, so everything looks awesome. 600 feet depth is a little deeper than I'm used to in the past, and just it's a question probably for the geothermal consultant, whether it be Skillings or possibly the HVAC engineer, what is the depth at which there's diminishing returns from a heat transfer standpoint? Obviously, the deep, to some extent, the deeper you go, the less wells you need. But I would imagine there's a point you hit diminishing returns with the depth. And I only ask that again because I'm used to seeing 500 feet as opposed to 600, but maybe 600 is better here for some reason. I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, Josh, I had that brief conversation and I can give you the big picture information. My plan is to get, CDM Smith, who is our well designer, at one of these meetings. We're going to have them involved with the sustainability meeting, working groups, to inform everybody. But so basically they try to go as deep as they can so that there are less wells. The problem is a 600-foot depth mark is kind of the limit where you start limiting your availability on drillers to get deeper.
Yep.
So while, yeah, it makes sense if we could go to 800 feet and reduce the number of wells, et cetera, we're limiting ourselves to the available drillers that get that depth, which means you're probably going to increase your drilling costs because there are very few people that can bid it. So that's what they're basing their depth on at this point. 600 is a good average and still keeps everything within the availability of a good number of drillers.
Thank you.
Matt?
Actually, just wanted to cross check that because I'm on the design side on several projects with geothermal. And our understanding is that 500 feet is that tipping point where you need different equipment to go lower. And then it gets much fewer, companies available to do it and so on. So I had never heard of 600 feet being a limit either.
Yeah, I'll confirm with them, Matt. But
Yep.
that was because I asked the same question. You typically hear 500,
Yeah.
et cetera. But we'll confirm that. And like I said, having them at our first sustainability working group meeting, can ask those questions. Skillings will be there. We can kind of go through the motion with that.
I guess. So you said that the current holes that they drilled were 600 feet, right? So
Yeah.
obviously they're capable of doing that with the equipment that they have. So.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right. And we'll be scheduling the subcommittee, I should say the working group meeting soon. So with regards to a project design update, we're currently in the process of the design development phase. We've been holding regular meetings with our design team, structural, mechanical, electrical, HVAC, et cetera, plumbing, site and civil, landscape. And everybody's, working together. We're sharing our information, our models for the project. This project is being done in Revit, as we mentioned, and coordinating the information that's going back and forth, revisiting all the schematic design information, making sure, if we've got any additional questions or information we're going to need during this phase, we get that information and plug it in. We're working towards the dates that Phil had provided with a design development estimate submission. We'll continue to work on those documents up until it's time to submit to MSBA. So in the next month and a half, those submissions will be taking place and getting that process done. We did hold a meeting with both planning board and conservation directors, both Bill Nemser, the planning board, and Julia Flannery of the conservation. Very helpful, very knowledgeable, very good to meet with. Justin DeMarco was part of those discussions as well with our civil team and our landscape team. So as we kind of discuss the permitting process, both from planning board side, which is site plan approval, and conservation to get any conservation approvals with DEP, et cetera. Bill had mentioned when discussing the planning board, possibly to have a pre-meeting with Bill and possibly Chris Arsenal, who's the chair, kind of go over just big picture intent, make sure, if they see any hiccups before we formally submit, we've addressed them and get a complete submission in to planning board. It makes things go a lot smoother with all the communities that we've dealt with, right? So we'll have all that information. Talked about waiving of the planning board site plan approval fees, et cetera. So we're looking at that. And one of the things we did discuss with Bill and Justin was, from the design team standpoint, we're looking to put together an early site package. And basically what that does is we're going to break out some of the early site work and bid that separately so we can get that work done over this coming summer while school's out and maybe into the fall. That would include removal of the ledge, right? And then some basic site prep with bringing in some fill and compacting it below where roads and the building's going to go. And what that'll help do is prepare the site for the building contractor. Number one, it's going to eliminate some of the general conditions that you would get with the building contractor. It's going to help with the schedule and condense the building schedule because we're taking out some of that early prep work. We're doing it beforehand when nothing else is really affected by it. And while we're still doing the overall building design. We've done this on a number of projects. It's proved to be a very good plan in saving, not only schedule, but cost. So we talked to Bill about that, and what the permitting would be looking like that. So our civil's working with Bill to determine if there's any pre-permitting that needs to be done as part of that. Wouldn't affect the wetlands. This work happens all out in the back to the south and west of the existing building. So that's kind of an ongoing process, and we'll keep everybody apprised of that as we go forward. We did meet with Julia and Conservation. We talked about the notice of intent and permitting through DEP with her group. We told her that we're going to keep the building out of the 100-foot buffer zone. She certainly approved and like that. There will be some minor improvements with parking and some roadways within the 100-foot into the outside the 50-foot buffer. So she didn't have any issues with that. But again, we'll prepare, formal application. We'll submit to the planning, the conservation board, and we're going to look to do these simultaneously with both planning and conservation to get that permitting going. We plan on doing that later in the design development process, and that'll work into the 60%. This way we can get any of their comments and feedback as part of the approval process, get into 60% set, so that when we have a 60% estimate, we can get that updated and a little bit more accurate. Josh.
Chris, are you thinking about doing tree removal in your early site package too?
Yes, that will definitely be necessary, Josh. So thank you for bringing it up. There will be some tree removal because in order to get some of that ledge, yeah, absolutely, where the new building and roadways are going to go. So that'll take place. We'll have a plan. We did discuss that with both Bill and Julia with our landscape architect, and talking about, the extent of the tree removal, removing the invasive species that's usually existing in, wooded areas, and then how we would try to compensate with new landscape as part of the new design and new improvements. So that's all part of that process. We'll keep everybody posted in the upcoming meetings. So the working group meetings, this is the order I want to start trying to get these meetings going. Looking to get the security and safety meeting scheduled for early next week, with possibly building a site to follow. And we're going to follow up simultaneously with sustainability. Our green engineer has kind of gone through the preliminary modeling. Everything looks good so far in passing the TEDI requirements for the code, and then meeting the sustainability for the new energy code and stretch code. So things are looking good. They're moving forward. We've done some work to improve our building envelope on some recent projects. We're going to incorporate that into this project. And some of the things you'll see that we've been talking about when we get into the building and site working group meetings is, increasing roof insulation, going to fiberglass composite windows, triple pane glazing, to reduce, the amount of heat loss, etc. Increasing the building envelope wall systems with insulation and U values. So that's all going to result in a very sustainable building. So working group meetings, Jerry, if you could, I know you've got kind of the working group email. If we could kind of determine what days work best for this group. I'm reaching out to our consultants as well to make sure we can get everything coordinated, and hopefully can do that sooner than later. Maybe set a specific day and time of the week when we can kind of regularly meet. If we don't need to that week, we can move it to the following week so everybody can put it in their calendars, and get this done kind of in an expeditious manner over the next several weeks during the design development phase. I would expect some of it may need to extend it to the 60% as we continue to work through the details of the project, the equipment being selected, and all that goes with that. Questions on working group meetings? Okay. And then what we're looking to do as well simultaneously is some follow-up district meetings. So as I mentioned previously, we've met with a lot of the district groups during the schematic design phase. And what we want to do is revisit those meetings with Brian, Rob, and their administration to make sure if there's any new information to include. It's been a year since we've been through this process and met with all the groups. I want to make sure we're still meeting the educational program requirements, the district requirements, et cetera. We'll meet with the school facilities again, with Bob Savoy and his staff to make sure that they are up to date with everything we've got working, the mechanical room areas, electric room areas, custodial spaces, the materials that are going in the building for ease of maintenance and cost, et cetera, and then how that applies and relates to our budget, right? Because that's a big thing we have to protect. It's nice that Maynard got some more money, but we still have to protect that budget to make sure we get the best cost for your project. We'll meet with the school specialty departments, as I mentioned, art, music, PE, special education, and those types of groups. And then food service. The existing school has a limited food service capability. They get a lot of their product from the middle school and high school, I believe. We did meet with them once before, and the company that's doing their food service work, along with our consultants. So we're going to meet with them again, work with them on a kitchen layout to make sure it's efficient for their staff, how they move product, the serving lines for students, any specialties for students or people with allergies, how we accommodate that, et cetera. So those will be coming up as well during this design development phase in the next several weeks. And again, some of that may spill over into the 60%, but we'll get the bulk of it nailed down during the design development phase. Any questions? Okay. So we'll send out a kind of an informational questionnaire, if you will. What days and times will be good for the various working group meetings? I'm working on that with my consultants, and we'll try to accommodate everybody, whether it's later afternoons or mornings, whatever that might be. Perhaps some of them could be early evening, like this meeting is taking place, just so we can get those things going and work through. And then we'll go from there. All right.
And Chris, just a quick thing too, to your point, we've got the working groups, we've got them listed. And just so that everybody's aware, whatever time any one of these meetings will be set up for will not be absolutely convenient for everybody. So you may be able to make a meeting, you may miss another meeting. It's almost impossible to get, Chris and his team, the consultants, and our people all to agree on the exact same time for everybody. So you're right, Chris. So when you send that out, let's see how well we do.
Absolutely.
Hey, Chris, Robert Rule, question for you.
Yep.
So we'll try to make it easy because I do want the teachers very much involved in even the facilities. If at some particular point when you're making or creating your meetings, we can put aside a day or 2 days or whatever you need, and we'll just give you a room area, and we'll schedule throughout the entire day for you, if that works for you at some particular point.
Yeah, Rob, we did that early on during the schematic design phase. If you remember, it worked really
Yep.
well.
Yep.
The groups of teachers came in.
That's right.
It was a half hour, 45 minutes. They were
Right.
great. Great people to
So,
deal with. So we look forward to it.
If you want to do that, we'll do that together again. That sounds great. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Perfect. Mary?
Yeah, and just if you can just let everybody know whether they have to be in person. I know there was some conversation that some of them would be in person and some of them could be remote, because sometimes it's easier for people to, break away for an hour from their work if they're still at work. So, but I know sometimes we'll have to be in person. So thanks.
Yeah, Mary, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that remote will be the way to go initially to get everything done, right? And then maybe as we go further along.
Oh, you're silenced.
Fell into mute world.
Yeah.
Chris, I think I
Sorry,
hit you.
there you go.
I'm sorry.
Shut me down, Phil. That's okay.
Phil's moving the
Yeah,
meeting
my
along.
bad, man. No,
So the goal would be is to have these meetings remote, especially early on, to iron out the details, to get all the technical information done, and then perhaps piggybacking on to a community forum. That's when we can have a more, in public meeting to share the information, because a lot of this is just going to be technical. I think that this group is going to be very involved with, the type of equipment and how these things operate and what we need to do from serviceability. So that would be the general goal, because we typically look to the building committee to obtain a lot of that information or input from the public, and then feed it through your group to the design team, as we would feed our information from our consultants through this group and then back out to the public. But at some point, we do need to have a community forum to say, okay, we've had all these working group meetings. Here's our site layout and our landscape and how we want to, show the playgrounds and work the site, how we want to operate it from a sustainable and, mechanical plumbing systems, point of view, et cetera. So,
Thank you.
Ken.
Yeah, thanks for this update, Chris. I know there's been some interest in how's the design going, so I appreciate seeing where the process is, and I can also understand that you need to have your focus on the 21st and not open up for a whole lot of charrettes, give and take design reviews. I'm thinking for this here, when you're presenting to us the design updates, some pictures would be great. If it doesn't present additional work on top of what you're already doing, if you can extract something from the set, maybe run down a couple of the problems with which your team is wrestling in the recent past, or that you anticipate wrestling with. Just want to make sure that we're able to give support from the committee in a timely manner. I'm thinking of blocking off the week after the 21st to look at the set, but it's going to be really tight to get any meaningful direction in before it goes to MSBA. So just trying to think of ways that we can be more helpful and involved in a helpful way and not in a slow you down kind of way.
Yeah, Ken, that's a good point, and good feedback. I think, having a set for you to review on the 21st, yeah, it's likely maybe not all the information can get in before MSBA, but that doesn't mean it can't get in for the 60%, et cetera, right? So, as we sit right now, the overall building is kind of in a solidified manner. There's just some minor tweaking. So we'll share those updates. I think that's a good point as well. We'll talk about some of the things that we're encountering. I know you're in the profession, so behind the scenes, there's always those daily conversations between your staff and your consultants about the little minuscule details some people may not want to hear about, but some find it interesting on how, we're solving the problems and getting from, the schematic to the final set that's going to be built and occupied. So we'll work to that end and see what we can share with you on a regular basis. Even if we're sharing maybe some of the general, like a section of a drawing of sections, just to show you some of the information that's going in there, some of the details that we've got planned, things of that nature. I can tell you that Dennis, who's also in this meeting, our design principal, has been working with people in my office on the exterior elevations. Now that we've got the building, now we're fine tuning that aesthetic aspect. We have to make sure that our windows and door openings ratio to the envelope is a certain percentage or less, so that we can be very efficient and sustainable and meet our goals. So they're working on that. And I think, Dennis, if you certainly want to chime in, it's looking really well on the progress I've seen. I'll share that with you at the next meeting. It's really coming along nicely with how everything's shaping up. Not a huge difference from what we showed you during schematic design, but really fine tuning everything that's coming about. Dennis?
Yes, it's quite a challenge. I'm trying to meet the criteria for the ratio of openings to solid wall. But we took it on and actually, I think not only did we are we constantly learning more and more about how to handle our elevations and proportion our windows. But I think we've come up with some really, really nice solutions. Very often, sometimes the challenges bring out, the best in the design. So we're pretty pleased with where it's going, and hope you will be too. Pretty sure you will be too. So we're looking forward to showing it to you.
Yeah, all right. So any questions on projects? Nick?
Yeah, I was thinking of the kind of thing that maybe would be nice to see is how we're fitting our 70, 72 wells. I know we're talking about splitting them a little bit, and that was one of those sort of big picture, we'll figure it out. It might be over here. And just, as that comes together, that's like the great kind of thing to sort of share with us. Or if you have a challenge of we can only fit 30 on the back lot and we still need to fit 42 up front and we're looking at this. That's, I think, some of the kind of stuff we're looking to see how it's going, so we don't get surprised later with, yeah, it's still in the old building and we couldn't do X, we couldn't save temp heat or something.
Yeah, well, Nick, that's a good point. And if I can share my screen, I can show you kind of the location as to where we're putting them. I got this in from our engineer today. All right, let me just
Oh,
share.
Are you
Just to
able
give
to?
permission.
Yeah, so everybody see my screen.
It's getting there, yeah.
All right. So this is what our well designer is working with. So we have the existing building down here. This is overlaid on the survey that was prepared. Our new school building is going to take up this space behind the existing building in a good portion of this field. And then we're going to be locating this well field in the back. We've met and discussed this with Justin DeMarco. This property is owned by the town of Maynard, but it's under the DPW's direction. So once these wells are in and installed, we'll lumen seed that area and it'll exist like there's nothing, no one will know anything's below it. So this is out of the way. It is very close to our mechanical room, which makes it very efficient rather than try to drag the wells when we were initially talking about putting them under the existing building or down the existing parking lot and trying to run that all the way back to the building here. So by doing this, we hope we can also reduce the number of wells, having it in close proximity. So once we get the loads and they plug it into their program, and they do all the runs from the wells to the building, hopefully we've got a good number. They're thinking 70 plus or minus, but we feel we can probably reduce that somewhat.
Yeah,
So that's what
the right hand side of that drawing. I happen to live over there and sneak over to the back of that place every now and then.
Mhm.
The rocks and boulders kind of come right there in the grass, in the
Yep.
trees. That gets a little rocky. Protrusions coming up and whatever you call outcroppings.
Yep. It does. And as a matter of fact, if you remember correctly, our first test well was right here. Our second one was right here.
I went and
So-
gave him a little kick last week.
Yeah. Oh, did you? Nice.
Yeah.
So, Nick, if you take a look at the report, it does talk about, experiencing some bedrock or ledge, below the surface. It's not something that's 600 feet deep, but it was something that was easily gone through. Again, the report indicated that their drilling rates were very acceptable for the material they've encountered. So we did walk back here with the driller and the well designer. They saw the outcropping of ledge and understand that, what we're looking to do is when we remove the ledge in this area, probably remove some of that surface ledge also in the well field so that we get it down to kind of like an even grade so that when they
That's what I was
drill,
thinking.
yeah, and these wells are going to be typically 4 to 6 feet below the surface where they're capped and then piped underground to the building below frost. So, they understand that. They've seen it. That will be some of the tree clearing, not a lot of area. This is the kind of the worst case scenario. If we can reduce the number of wells, they'll bring that, that in out of the treed area a little bit more. One of the options is, if need be, we can put some of these wells under the back drive behind the building. So that's easily done. If it's done in the first phase, they'll be well below the depth of any roads, et cetera, and prep. So that's all part of the design thoughts that are going into it as we gather the information. So we should be in good shape. Anything else, Mary?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to compliment you and Justin again of coming up with that scenario because it's even if it costs us a little bit more to deal with the ledge, it's, if I remember correctly, it's going to save us like $250,000 to not have to have the interim heating system, right? So
Yeah,
it's really it was a great thought on both of your parts. So
thank you. Yep, Justin, when we first met with the drillers out there, we started talking and it was like we were thinking the same thing. But obviously Justin's the one that's in control of the property. So for him to bring it up was just a home run. I think it's going to work well for the project. All right.
So Jerry, next we just got new business and then next meeting date.
I don't know of any new business. I think Chris covered the whole issue of regarding the working groups. That's a certainly extremely important factor. The next one would be the meeting date. Do we need to meet? I see you've got the meeting date here for March 25th. Do we need to meet sooner? I don't know. I was thinking we might be meeting on a 2-week basis, or are we not at that point at this juncture?
Chris, up to you.
Yeah, Jerry, I don't think we need to meet every 2 weeks.
Okay,
We're going to be meeting with the working groups, which, if memory serves me right, there's several people on each of those. So it's a good portion of this group. What we can
Yep.
do is if we feel the need after the 25th to increase that, then that's possible. My experience has been at this point, we'll work with the working groups. They'll have a lot of input. We'll report back to this committee on the 25th and then again in April.
okay.
And go from there.
Yeah, that's good. I'm not looking for more meetings. I just wanted to make sure that, we meet as frequently as is needed. Perfect.
Sounds like you're getting lonely down in Florida.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, school vacation's over, this past weekend, and, all the, how do I
All
say,
the grandkids have gone home.
all the screaming grandchildren have now left the pool. Yes. Did I say that? I did, didn't I? Anyway, yes, we have it kind of back to us now. Yeah, no, I've got more than enough to keep me busy. So, okay, I think if there is no other new business, any other questions? No, anybody? I don't see any hands going up. So our next meeting is right now tentatively scheduled for March 25th. I don't have an objection to that. I don't see any hands raised that would tell me that other people are objecting. So I would take someone who would make the next motion, which is for many people, many times the most favorite motion.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Well, I knew you'd get that, Mary.
Second.
Thank you, Rob. Perfect. Let me do a roll call, and we'll call it a night. Justin?
Yes.
Thank you. Chris is not here. Greg is not here. Mary?
Yes.
Hillary? Brian? I know Brian's around here somewhere. Mike Stevens?
Yes.
Thank you. Rob?
Yes.
Thank you. Jennifer, no. Wayne?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Mark Anderson?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
Thank you. Nick? Oh, I'm sorry, Matthew?
Yes.
Nick?
J before K. Yes.
Yeah. Ken?
Yes.
Thank you. Josh?
Yes.
Perfect. Those are all our voting members, unanimous. The meeting technically is adjourned.
Good night, guys. Thank
Good
you.
night.